Now that's what I call a complete valve spring upgrade. Welcome back to Bad Attitude Performance. Hi, you thought I was going to mess up and say C10, didn't you? Well, today's video is going to be in relationship to the Bad Attitude C10, and I'm going to be going over the valve springs that we picked up from our partners over at Brian Tooley Racing. So, the valve springs we'd already kind of done a little overview of and what they are and everything, and you can see the part number and everything here. And we're going to be discussing a lot of the numbers that are on the box and the actual information that comes when you purchase your springs. Then we're going to share exactly the installed height that we'll be doing and what our pressures will be with our installed height and our open pressure as well by the camshaft lift that we're running. So, stay tuned. So the kit that we'll be using is the SK001 Platinum Dual Spring Kit. It basically is a kit that is good up to a 660 lift, but in our case, we're going to be setting the parameters a little bit different because we have a smaller cam. So let's go over what these numbers mean. Now, the information on the box from BTR states that these springs will have a coil bind of 1 inch and 70 thousandths. Now, we went on ahead and we checked every spring that we had, and we did measure them, and we found that our springs ranged from 1 inch and 26 thousandths to 1 inch and 35 thousandths. So we'll be basing our math on the 1 inch and 35 thousandths coil bind. The next number that's going to be important to us is that BTR recommends a coil bind clearance of 50 to 60 thousandths. So us remaining on the conservative side, I chose to go with the 60 thousandths. So the next number that we see is highlighted shows that it is at 1 inch and 130 thousandths, which is 60 thousandths added to the box valued coil bind of the 1 inch and 70 thousandths. So we're going to have to change the math up a little and see what our new number is going to be for open pressure. So to find this figure to be pretty easy, we're going to take our coil bind, which was 1 inch and 35 thousandths, add the 60 thousandths of coil bind clearance recommended by BTR, and that'll give us the total of 1 inch and 95 thousandths. So that is going to be our height when the valve is open. The next number that's going to be important to us is going to be our installed height, and the box recommends 1 inch and 780 thousandths, but that's based on the 660 lift cam. So with our cam only having the 619 and 617 lift values, what we're going to have to do is a little more math. So to find our installed height, we're going to do the following. We're going to start by taking our coil bind clearance of the 1 inch and 35 thousandths. We're going to add in the 60 thousandths for coil bind clearance. After that, we're going to base our valve lift on the higher of the two because we have a 619 and a 617. So the values are going to be really close. So we're going to add in the 619 valve lift. Now remember, we base it on valve lift, not cam lift. The rocker arm ratio needs to be included. So that yields an installed height of 1 inch 714 thousandths. Now guys, on a side note, BTR doesn't normally recommend going any tighter than an installed height of a 1 inch 750 thousandths on these dual platinum springs. Now we are going a little tighter than that, and we're going to be working outside the parameters of the working range of this spring, and BTR would like to provide you with the best durability and longevity that they can. So be sure you check with your manufacturer first. So basically, once I finish changing these inner springs, retainers, and getting my grouping on these springs where I'm comfortable, and I get the pressures at the settings that we're going to do, I'm going to share them with Paul over at BTR before we move forward. That way, if they think they might have a spring better suited for my application, we'll, cross that bridge when we come to it. Now guys, I know a video like this probably isn't in a lot of y'all's wheelhouse, and some of y'all might find it interesting and others not so, but I'm doing this personally because I'm one of them people that a lot claim to be over analytical and everything like that, but it's also just the thought process going into the build of the truck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run these springs through the tester, and I'm going to first run them up to the box installed height of the 1-inch 780 thousandths and write down the pressure. Then I'm going to move to our custom installed height of the 1-inch 714 thousandths. Then I'm going to go to what the box would have shown as the open pressure to be at the 1-inch 130 thousandths. And then I'm going to go to what our actual open setting height is going to be, which is the 1-inch and 95 thousandths. Now, I understand a lot of people might be like, hey, this is a lot of overkill and stuff like that. But these numbers are going to be numbers that I can use, and I know which spring, is at what pressures. And when we go to install the valve spring installed height on our heads, if we have one that kind of falls between where the shims are and it's going to be a little bit taller than we really would want, but we don't have a shim that size to tighten it up, we'll install one of the springs that has the higher pressure value. And vice versa, if we have one that's going to be a little snugger than we'd care for, and we don't really want to have to go and have anything done, like run an offset, lock or anything like that, and it's kind of borderline, what we could do is put one of the weaker springs in that area. And so all in all, hopefully we can have the parameters within a tight grouping and everything's pretty consistent. So let's get to it. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, I did number all these retainers 1 through 16 so we can keep track of what spring is at what pressure. Now, all the data that we got on the last video is kind of out the window because I did rotate, inner springs and retainers to try to get everything grouped a little, tighter together and more consistent. So I am going to run through, and we're not going to use the stop on the tester. Each individual spring is going to be ran into all 4 positions. Now, if you remember in the last video, I showed the height difference of the spring, and then with the retainer added is about 100 thousandths even. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 100 thousandths in the calipers and zero it to where all of our numbers are going to jive with the number that are on the box. That way nobody gets confused, because instead of doing 1-inch and 780 thousandths, I'd be doing it at 1-inch and 880 thousandths, and I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. So we're going to go ahead and bring this up, and what I'm going to do is on the first spring, I am going to go ahead and show the numbers on the caliper, but after that, I'm not going to bore y'all with this and draw this out too long. I'm just going to go ahead and run it through. So what we're going to do is the first number that we're going to concentrate on is the box installed height, which is 1-inch 780 thousandths. Now at this installed height, BTR states that you should have 155 pounds. Now, they also do have a fudge factor in there, and the parameters are 10 pounds plus or minus, so the range is 145 to 165. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly where it lands in the chart that I'm going to paste up above. So spring number 1 at the installed height, based on the box figures, came in exactly right at 155 pounds. So now we're going to go ahead and move to the 1-inch 714 thousandths and see what our pressure lands at. So at this height, we came into a 181 pounds on spring number 1. So now we're going to move forward to the box value on the open pressure, which was at 1-inch 130 thousandths, and it should yield somewhere around 400 pounds. Again, that's give or take 10 pounds plus or minus. So we're looking for 390 to 410. So let's see where we end up. So here we ended up at 408. So let's go ahead and get started again. And well, hang on one sec. I had to make sure that my caliper was in the same position. So here we go again, and we're gonna slowly start going. And I'm being sure that this just doesn't jump up to the 1-inch and 95 thousandths, which will be our new target for our open. So we're right about there, and let's see what this yields. And there you have it. It comes in at 428 pounds. Now guys, I'm going to go ahead and turn this one camera off, and we're just going to buzz through these. So I'm going to time lapse it, and I'll just let y'all enjoy a little bit of background music, and I'll post each pressure up as we go. So enjoy the video. Alright guys, my camera cut off, and I thought it had cut off on spring number 11, but it cut off on spring number 10, so I'm just going to fill in the spring number 10 stuff and then move on to spring number 11. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this up. So I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see them a little better. And thanks for watching. And until next time, we'll catch you again.